Hey there, welcome back to Fresh Start Budgeting. Today I am breaking out the coins. I've got this jar. Okay, so out of that jar, we've gotten a washer, a Chuck E. Cheese token, a Toronto bus token, so that shows you where some of this came from, and then 4 pennies, which we haven't had for many, many years, so I'm still hanging on to 4 pennies. Okay. Hey there, welcome back to Fresh Start Budgeting. Today I am breaking out the coins. I've got this jar, which is a accumulation of when I started this journey, but also just some coins and stuff from that I had before. Since I've started probably in May, I've definitely been putting more of the larger coins in, whereas normally I would go through and I'd scoop out all the $1 coins and all that kind of stuff and use them. I've been just dumping all of my coins as I use a lot of cash into the jar, and so I'm going to start today figuring out exactly how much that is. This is my Canadian Penniless Penny Saving Challenge, and so this is what I'm going to be using to track how much I have after I've done some counting. If there's any Canadians out there or anybody who doesn't use pennies for the most part and would like this tracking sheet, just send me an email that's available in my About section, and I will send this to you. There's no charge or anything for this. It's just it's something that I've noticed is that penny saving challenges don't work for us that have lost our pennies. So if anybody, I know there's a few other countries, I think I'm not even going to guess, any other countries that don't have pennies that would like this, feel free to send it and I can remove the Canadian or whatever that is. Okay, all right, so let's get started. Excuse the noise. Okay. So I don't even know how to guess how much this is, but we're going to start with all the toonies are just going to naturally go into this, which is my toonie saving challenge. It's going to end up being 100 once I color in all the different pieces. So right now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's number 5. I'm going to be throwing into here. So what I really like about this is, you know, it's so easy just to grab all that change and think that it's no big deal. It doesn't add up to anything, and you know, you just use it. You make up $1 in quarters and whatever, and head off and use it. But having not used this money is kind of nice to have a good start here. Okay, so just colored in 5. I hope I just colored in 5, but there we go. Okay. And so I thought through this, I'm going to decide later whether I keep the audio or not, but I would just kind of talk a little bit about what my situation has been. I've talked a little bit about things, but not in any kind of certain detail. I am a Canadian single mother of 2 teenage daughters. I had my children quite young. I'm 40 years old. I had my first daughter when I was 20 and my second daughter at 23. And so that's had a major impact on all kinds of things in my world, but most specifically, my financial health has really, I notice now that my financial health has been very poor for all time. My parents were not good with money. My dad made quite a bit of money. He was a computer engineer when that wasn't really a thing back in the early 90s. But I know that they had declared bankruptcy and they lost their house and all those kinds of things. They always lived paycheck to paycheck as long as I could remember. So I never really got a good sense of not living that way, which is unfortunate, right? It's not what I want my children to experience, but you know, unfortunately through their early lives, that really is what they will have experienced. So, anyways, I went to school in. I am Canadian, but I went to high school in the States, and when I finished up high school, I really didn't know what to do, and I took a year and I traveled around Eastern Europe, and I did some pretty cool, interesting things. But when that time came to a close, I came back to Canada. I didn't really have a home base because my parents were kind of transitory at that point, and I went and I lived with my sister. In Toronto, and I had never, at that point, I had never been in Toronto. um, so that was the that was the first thing, right? Toronto is a very big city, lots of opportunity, and looking back, I wish I made some very different choices. But I began working immediately, like in a local coffee shop kind of situation, and I met who became my partner, who was a lot older than me, had already had children himself, had a lot of just baggage that he was bringing into the relationship. And being the age that I was, I didn't see those things and I didn't really care. I just thought I don't know what I thought. But I became pregnant very quickly after our relationship started. He was my first kind of real relationship, and when that happened, I just made the decision that, I was going to have my daughter, and I would be with him because that's how I've been raised, that's what you do. And, the story gets a little crazy in that when I went to some prenatal appointments, they said that, my daughter would be severely disabled. I had something called cytomegalovirus, which when you're pregnant is very harmful to the developing baby. And so they really had a very poor prognosis. Being young and indestructible, I decided that that was not going to be a problem for me, and that I had a partner, and I imagined he was going to step up and be there. And so my daughter was born almost 3 months early. She spent 3 months in neonatal intensive care unit, and that's kind of, that was the start of my adult life. It was, very hard. There was a very toxic relationship with his ex, who was not a fan of me at all, for a variety of reasons. And so that's how my adult world started. So, it was never a really great environment for me to be in this relationship. Financially, we were very, very stuck. I had a little bit of money from an accident that I had when I was 14. There was a settlement payment that I had, and so I went through that very quickly because he was not providing financially in terms of what my daughter needed at the time. So that went very quickly. And then, sorry, I'm having a moment. And so, I was lucky enough to get into a career job in organizational development that was, a good job, but I worked for a not-for-profit organization that did not have a lot of money, and I was very underpaid for a very long time, especially living in Toronto. I stayed in that relationship for 13 years, and there was never money that was available for the kids. Everything about the kids was on me, and that's just the way it was. He came from a culture where female children were not wanted the same way male children were, and so he had a son from a previous relationship who was treated significantly different than my daughters were, and that was very difficult to go through. It was an abusive relationship, and so it took me 13 years to actually see that this was not what I wanted, and that I actually deserved something more and better than what I was experiencing. I'm losing coins. So fast forward those 13 years, when I decided to leave, I hadn't been able to save any money, like any money at all. We always lived paycheck to paycheck. I'm just gonna move this because there's more interesting things up there. Okay, we always lived paycheck to paycheck, so there was never money for me to save or do anything with, and it also wasn't something I understood. During the relationship, I had had a couple of credit cards which I had maxed out and then had gone to judgment, and so I had paid those through garnishment, which was horribly embarrassing working at the organization I was. So when I decided to leave, all I could afford was a basement apartment for me, my 2 kids, and my mother, who I support. She had lived with me at that point about 10 years, and so she was a great help to the kids, but it was also another person that I had to provide for. So I moved to a basement apartment, and we lived there for 2 years while I tried to figure out how I would get out of the city, because that abuse just continued, right? When I was there, I knew I needed to leave. I needed to disappear and not be seen from again. He made no financial contributions to my girls. He would only, show up and rage and everything else outside my home, things like that. And so I became very desperate. I found the opportunity to leave Toronto, and I now live in Western Canada, and I took it. I got a little bit of money from my employer for a situation, and I packed everybody up. When I had left him, I couldn't take any of the furniture, very few belongings outside of what the girls had. It really was just a run kind of situation, but he was still able to find me, of course. So when I left Toronto, I left anything I had been able to collect during those 2 years, and I just left. And what happened was I needed to take a couple loans when I got to Western Canada, just to be able to survive. And I left bills unpaid in Toronto. I just left, right? Nobody had my forwarding address. Nobody knew what employer I was going to. It really was this clean break, but at the same time, I always knew that I would have all this stuff hanging over me, and I just pretended like it didn't exist, right? I knew I would never have good credit. I'd never be able to purchase a home and all of these other things. It was just kind of my reality. And so I did know my current partner at the time that I left. So I took a chance coming here. I did not move in with him. I moved into my own place, and I lived there for, 18 months. 18 months? Yeah, about that. But I had to take a couple payday loans, which are just predatory. They're horrible. I mean, people in situations, they need money, but there's got to be a better way, right? I understand, I've got the bad credit. I'm not eligible for anything, but, in a situation where you're just desperate, you do not have family who financially can help you. You've got all these responsibilities. You don't have any kind of financial support from your children's other parent. There's got to be ways that people can be helped. that are not going to put them in the kind of situation where I became. Because what happened was I did it for a little while where I would just, I take the money, make sure I could do whatever it was I needed to do, but then you're paying it back in 2 weeks, right? With a ridiculous amount of interest and everything else, right? So I got to the point where I couldn't keep up. And again, there's a couple of those payday loan places where I was working, they knew where I was living, all of that stuff. But when I moved in with my partner and I changed jobs at the same time, because I had only been in a contract position, I gave up, because I knew at that point, I was never getting ahead. I was never, I never imagined I would be able to have good credit. So I just gave up. And I stopped responding to phone calls. Nobody knew where I had moved to, all of these things. And so that's what happened. I left it all behind, or I thought I did. And so now, I've started to dream again. I've started to think about, what does it mean to put money away and do things differently, and not feel every time the phone rings, your heart just drops, because it's somebody who wants something out of you, right? And so this is what's brought me to making my channel, in that I want to see what I can actually do. Is it possible to start again? Is it possible to take a credit score, which I'm going to be totally honest with you, is probably in the bottom 10%, and actually start again, right? And if I can't start again, how can I do this whole cash flow thing better? How can I do it in a way that's I'm actually going to have money for the things that I want and need in going into the future? Because I'm tired. I don't know anybody who's dealt with this kind of financial stuff, who's struggled. I'm tired. I'm 40 years old. My kids are, they're growing up. I feel like I've done a good job with them. And now I don't want to fight this anymore. I want to do better. And so that's where I am. So I'm gonna finish up counting out these things, and then we'll see how much we've got. But already you can see I'm filling up 3 of these quarter ones so far, and still have some more. It's not too shabby. So let's see what a Chuck E. Cheese token, a Toronto bus token, so that shows you where some of this came from, and then 4 pennies, which we haven't had for many, many years, so I'm still hanging on to 4 pennies. Okay, 5 pennies, there's another one. Could have made a nickel out of that. Okay, so I'm going to get to counting here. Okay, each one of these, and this is where I wonder if I can be wrong. And of course, it's not going to tell me on the package, but each one of these is $10. Okay, so I've got 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 in quarters, which is great. I'm just what a mess when they tell you don't play with your money. Okay, so 25 cents, got $50. Okay, my 10 cents, each one of these is worth 5, so 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, and then the 5 cents, each one of these is worth $2.50, so 5, 10. Awesome. So now let's see what else we got here. We've got loonies, which take a while to get there, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 loonies. So let's just put them in their own little safety blanket. Okay. Is it possible to close these without them being full? That's the question of the day. Not really is the answer. Okay, for quarters, I've got, oh, there's a nickel in there. I've got another nickel. Nickels disguised as quarters. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8.75. Okay, in tens, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got dollar in dimes, and I've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70. Okay. So 10.45 in loose change that's going back in the jar. What did I say this was? There's my short-term memory loss. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. $8. So now we've got 18.45. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at what we. Look, my battery's still low. Okay. So we've got 18.45 plus 50 plus 20 plus 10 is, I have almost $100 in coins, not including my toonies. So that is awesome. I have got 98.45, and this challenge is 410. So I am 1/4, well, less than 1/4 of the way there. So let's take all these. I'm gonna put these over here, and hope they don't all bust open. Okay, and we're going to fill in some numbers here, which I'm going to be able to do a lot. So can I remember what I did? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 10 of each number from 5 all the way to $2. So we're going to do the 2s, which is going to be minus 20. Okay. Okay, now we're going to do 1.95. Oh my goodness. It's going to be, okay, forgive me. Minus the 1950 is going to be the next row. Do you ever find when you're filming, like, your brain just kind of goes dead? It doesn't work the same way that it normally would. We can do this row. And then we can also do the next row, 1850. And we're going to be able to do one more row. Because that's going to be minus 18. I've got 345 left. Okay. So we're going to take out $1.75. And that's going to give me $1.70 left. So that's perfect. So there we go. So this, today is July, what is today? July 9th. This is how much I had, and that's what I filled in. Okay, so that's it. $98.45. So, say by the end of the year, I should be able to do the rest, especially because I'm going to be doing cash budgeting. There's a lot of change that crosses my hands, and I don't hang on to it. At the end of the day, I throw it into the jar. So that's why you see a lot of rounding in my numbers, is because I'm not worrying about the nickels and the dimes and even the quarters, as you can see, because I filled up all those quarter things. I'm just throwing it in the jar. Loonies, I've picked through. I will be honest, I've taken out loonies. So, but I can't now because I've now counted these as part of that. Which just made me think, as I'm going to have to keep these separate from the next set of money that I put in, because otherwise I'll be counting it twice, and that won't be fair. It'll make me finish faster, but it won't be fair. So yeah, thanks so much for joining me, and I look forward to finishing this piece up, and thanks for listening if you listen through my story, and I will see you next time.